Scanning for audio.
Welcome to a Tin Dog podcast. Now, this one is reviewing Atta Girl, as it seems to be being called, in all of the press releases, and indeed all of the box set extras. But when I first saw it written down, I assumed it was called ATA Girl. But as I realised, because, I'm a bit dim, not everyone spent a few years working in a military museum, and not everyone had a friend at university who ran an aircraft museum. Not everyone hung around the history department far too much, or watches far too much old history documentaries. No, not everyone's like that. Some people who experience Big Finish are just sci-fi fans, or people who like a bit of drama. Well, I was kind of resistant. Couple of reasons. First one, I'm pushed for time. I can't spend every waking hour listening to Big Finish. Yes, I know, it might seem like that to you, but it doesn't. Also, you've got to kind of prioritise a few things. I know for a fact that everyone would be a bit miffed if I missed out, say, the main monthly range, or the McGanns, and as I've covered every single version of Blake 7 known to man, people are going to be miffed if I miss those out. Again, with the Torchwoods, you can see it racking up. And, of course, I've got the UFO cast coming, all filling up the Tin Dog podcast schedules. So I was a bit resistant, and I'm a snob. I am. Oh, it's another drama, Big Finisher trying something new. Oh, and you know what? Oh, I couldn't be more wrong. Of course they're trying something new. They're a 20-year-old company with a proper business model. They are a producer of audio. And let's face it, in the UK, although we've got a tradition of audio, it's all Radio 4. There's one supplier and a lot of providers. So anybody out there producing audio drama has got the pick of the crop. Now, I've got a feeling that this started out as an idea for a TV drama, because it would have just been brilliant. But finding a load of Second World War aeroplanes that are still flying and can be used for the sort of stuff that would be needed in this narrative would make this a very expensive series. It would be a series that would be on, say, ITV on a Sunday evening, and it would bring in a huge audience. It would be tremendously popular. And then after 2 seasons, much to everyone's surprise, there wouldn't be an announcement that it was coming back, and people for years would go, whatever happened to ATA Girl? Or Atta Girl? Because let's face it, that's what everyone's calling it. So let's call it Atta Girl, because that means like, Atta Girl, yay, you're doing well. Because this is one of those things that we're crying out for. A primarily female-led cast drama, but based on real events. So it's not, say, Star Trek with a female crew or anything like that. This is based on the past. These are people with equal pay. These are people with actual drive, ambition and talents. The only thing against them is that they are predominantly middle class. But that's because the people who had flying experience in the first place were the people with cash. Okay? We can accept that. If you're going to stick with verisimilitude, that's it. And so far, I'm listening to one story at a time and I'm blown away. Truly fantastic. Yes, there are no flying saucers, and because I've just listened to Ravenous episode 1, I was expecting Spitfires under the, auspices of Churchill and so on. But no, This is pure 100% fabulous drama. It's got emotional range, it's got tremendous characterisation, it's got a multinational cast. Of course it's got great acting. It's Big Finish. They're not going to have anything else. It's got tremendous directing. Now, your basic setup so far, because I have only listened to episode 1, is that it's the post-Normandy invasion of 1944, where the Allies ended up trying to push back against the Axis powers across northern Europe. It's the early days. Well, it's the first few months anyway. But that story, the Second World War story, is framed by an elderly person, one surviving character, spending time with her daughter, Lou Jameson, and her granddaughter at an air show. So obviously it's set more, well, let's put it this way, in the 1990s or early 2000s than it is today. Because someone of that age will be touching 100 now. And I know you get some very sprightly, very targeted, very aimed 100-year-olds. But I think drama-wise, you've got it set just a few years in the past. Either way, that's not a complaint. So the setup of one storyline consisting of the girls arriving and there being some sort of family turmoil. I don't want to spoil too much. And some history is great. There's also tremendous attention to detail. It's a sort of thing that if it isn't true, it feels true, and that's the important bit. It feels true to a tremendous level. So, is it brilliant? Of course it is. Is it worth shelling out your cash? Without question. And have Big Finish chosen well, as this is their first independent release. Alright, let's not count Cicero and the old, classic dramas. This is the first original piece. So I could see it working on TV. But you know what? You're going to get an unaltered script. You're going to get drama that is purer on audio than it would ever be after it had been watered down and turned into Heartbeat with Aeroplanes. Because that's what you'd get once it turned onto TV. So if you want something hard-hitting, interesting, something a little bit out of your comfort zone, but close enough to what you know in order to love it, then this is a brilliant starting point. I'll return back and record some more once I've listened to the further few episodes. But so far, absolutely captivated. Back in a moment. Welcome back. I've been a naughty boy. What I've done is, I started listening to story number 2, and then it went into story number 3, and before I knew what I was doing, I'd listened to story number 4. You see, what's happened is Big Finish have managed to produce a simply marvellous set. So yeah, exactly as I feared, I've now been hooked on yet another range. It's ridiculous, and the idea that this won't get another series is just beyond me. Atta Girl or ATA Girl, well, it's just brilliant. It's got a unique feel to it. Yes, there's darkness that you'd expect, but as it's all written by women and predominantly has a almost complete female cast, it does have a very different feel to it, something I'm completely welcoming of. So before I go on and ramble and say how utterly marvellous this is, let's give you some synopsises. 1.1, which does imply that there's going to be another series, is up in the air. Now this story is set primarily March 1944. A young widow, Daphne Coyne, arrives at the Air Transport Auxiliary, having signed up to train as a new pilot. Already unsure of her decision, she is shocked to find that her estranged younger sister, Rebecca, has also joined the ATA, hoping for a chance of reconciliation. As Daphne grows close to her flying instructor, the injured former RAF pilot David, and discovers an unexpected passion for flying, the two sisters try to navigate their broken relationships. But David has family trapped in Belgium, and Daphne has a plan that could jeopardise all of their futures. Now, the thing about this story for me is that I expected episode 2 to follow on straight from episode 1. In a narrative arc speaking, here is the payoff, here's what's happened. But it doesn't.
Because of the framing situation between the episodes, we actually cover, in the framing storyline, a good 10 years, which utterly surprised me. And story 2 is actually set differently, at a different time. Genius in storytelling, because it makes you want more and it keeps you going. Which it didn't really need to, because Dancing with a Spitfire is an absolutely spot-on piece of storytelling. It's by Victoria Saxton. In 1942, glamorous it girl, Second Officer Mina Lauderdale, is enjoying her work with the ATA, flying her aircraft recklessly and living up to her nickname of the Wild Card. However, amidst all the press attention, the partying and endless flirting, Mina is secretly running away from an unwanted destiny. It's only when she meets outspoken US pilot Jeanette that Mina finally begins to discover her true self and face up to the reality of who she wants to be. Yes, there are fairly obvious storylines coming out here, but they're handled with such delicacy and, dare I say it, panache, that you get just something different from what you were expecting. I don't want to go into any more spoilerific details than that. Suffice to say that this is a great piece of storytelling, but they all are. There isn't a weak episode amongst them. The idea of setting it earlier in the war gives a whole more glamorous feel to it. And yes, the glamour of the 1940s is not ignored, but it is put into true perspective. There's been so much research done here, and not just into the sound effects for the aeroplanes. I'm seriously talking a lot of workable stuff. I know at some point somebody says the word jet lag, but you know what? I'll look it up later. I don't care. If that's the only thing I've got against this storyline, then I'm not the reviewer or writer I thought I was. Which brings us up to 1.3, Flying Blind. Now, I don't want to use the word harrowing at any point, but I feel I have to. There's stuff that goes on here that, yes, you've seen elsewhere and done in soaps and mentioned in stuff like The Craze and things like that, but here, because you've got a female author, nobody's shying away, nobody's cutting to another scene. We're getting to see life in the raw, the reality of a pre-National Health Service, the reality of a world where laws were different, where choices were so much more limited in every single way. It's 1942-43. Judith Heathcote has been with the ATA since the start and is one of the few mothers in the Corps, with her husband missing, presumed dead, and her daughter living with her parents. Judith is beginning to question the sacrifice she's making for the war effort. Seen as a maternal figure by many of her colleagues, it seems that Judith looks out for everyone but herself. So when a chance of happiness arises, she seizes upon it, only to find herself caught up in a series of events that propel her towards an unthinkable solution. It's a heartbreaking story, and so incredibly raw. This is the sort of story that you'll be thinking of, and it'll remind you to go back to the box set. And finally, you've got Grounded by Jane Slavin. It's early 1945. The end of the war is closer than these pilots realise, but meanwhile there's an unexpected air raid to contend with. With the sirens sound at the ATA ferry pool, the women have to find a way to protect themselves and each other, some making it to the bomb shelters while others are trapped above. Elsewhere, RAF pilot Walter, already traumatised by his war experience, has come to seek solace with the ATA pilot Amelia. She and her best friend, Whitley, do their best to comfort him, but with the war still raging around them, they are reminded of losses suffered and losses still to come. I was beginning to suspect that the framing mechanism would just begin to grate, but as it skips forward in time so much, I was actually beginning to love it even more. The PTSD storyline in this, of course, is almost as harrowing as the events in episode 3. The reality of genuine people living through these experiences feels more real here than it ever has on TV or in war movies. We experience the past through art, through storytelling, And let's face it, when everything's gone, everything around you that you know and love, all that will be left are the stories. So, that is what we have here. Fabulous storytelling and a great beginning for Big Finish. More of the same, please. And can I just say, Louise Jameson, you've done yourself, and you've done Big Finish, and you've done us proud. Thanks very much. So until next time, I'll play you the trailer and let you decide for yourself. But I warn you now, if you do buy it, you'll be hooked. So until next time, be seeing you.
Coming soon, a Big Finish original drama, At a Girl.
I'm so sorry, excuse me. Is this the Air Transport Auxiliary?
New recruit?
Yes.
Welcome to Whitewater.
The menace is the woman who thinks that she ought to be flying in a high-speed bomber when she really has not the intelligence to scrub the floor of a hospital properly.
Why have you framed that quote?
Because I like to remind myself what we're up against. We are a small group of women pilots with a job to do.
The Spitfire is very special. You just need to touch her with your little finger, and she will dance with you.
Come in low. Cut the engine over the boundary edge.
Cut the engine over the boundary edge.
And float down on all 3 points.
Float down on all 3 points.
David, can I ask you something first?
Yes, Daphne.
Will you kiss me?
Amelia, do you know what my 3 favourite words in the English language are?
More champagne, please?
Not too bad, but no. Cold front clearance.
My number 1 tip is not to forget your Bibles.
How will a Bible help us fly a plane?
What did I say? Oh, these guys are crazy. We should get Jackie...
Oh, sweetie, darling. Oh, adorable.
You laughing at me?
She didn't mean a religious Bible. She meant the very pilot's notes, and we call it the Bible.
You'll each be issued one. Never go anywhere without it. It tells you everything you might need to know about flying whatever plane you find yourself on.
We may be on the path to equality for women in aviation, but we still have to take 10 paces for every 5 that a man takes. Have you flown before?
Big Finish. We love stories.
"2018 brings with it 3 brilliant conventions, all held at the Derby Quad. ShadowCon 2, the UFO convention, will be on June the 30th, 2018. Hooverville, the best little Doctor Who convention in the world, is on Saturday the 1st of September, while Big Finish Day is on the 3rd of November 2018. All tickets are available from the Derby Quad website. That was the Doctor Who Tin Dog podcast, available on iTunes, YouTube, Twitter, RSS, Vimeo, and across the internet. Doctor Who and its associated properties are all copyright and trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. Why not become a supporter by visiting patreon.com/tindog. Contact the show on tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. The Tin Dog podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.